Smashed, wasted, plastered, hammered, 3 sheets to the wind, sloshed, zonked, sozzled, gassed. All of these are slang for one term, drunk. The United States is unique in its high legal drinking age of 21 years old. John M. McArdle, founder of the organization Choose Responsibility, a nonprofit dedicated to helping youth make informed decisions about alcohol, said that although our laws acknowledge that at age 18, young adults possess sufficient maturity and judgment to operate a motor vehicle, serve in the military, perform jury duty, or sign a contract, those same laws deny 18-year-olds the right to purchase, possess, or consume alcohol. Many young people seem to be unsatisfied with this fact. I know that I am. However, underage drinking is a very severe problem, but I'm going to argue that the ways in which the U.S. is dealing with this are not helping. In fact, they are possibly hindering it. Today, I'm going to inform you about how severe a problem underage drinking is, argue that the reasoning for the drinking age and the progress since raising of the drinking age are not sound, and argue that Europe and Canada's systems are much better in both laws and social structure. So before we can talk about what should be done about underage drinking, we need to understand it. Excessive alcohol consumption is the 3rd leading cause of preventable death in the United States. According to the CDC, alcohol is the most commonly used and abused drug among youths in the United States and is responsible for more than 4,300 deaths annually. That's only among underage youth. To make it a tiny bit more relevant to us, according to the Annual Review of Public Health, alcohol annually contributes to about 1,700 deaths, 600,000 injuries, and about 100,000 cases of sexual assault among college students. In the 2011 Youth Risk Behavior Survey done by the CDC, it was found that 22% of youth binge drank in the last 30 days and 39% consumed alcohol. So that's more than 1 in 5 people under the age of 21 binge drinking within the last month. These kinds of numbers are what caused MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, to rally with the federal government in 1948 to get the drinking age lowered higher from 18 to 21 in all 50 states. Since then, MAD and others have been defending the reasoning for 21 as a legal drinking age and stating how successful it has been, including programs such as DARE in lowering underage drinking and its effects. MAD claims that the higher drinking age is responsible for the decline in annual alcohol-related deaths in a motor vehicle from over 26,000 in 1982 to about 17,000 in 2005. This study did not take into account the fact that cars have gotten a lot safer since 1982. Airbags were not standard in both driver and passenger side until about 1998. Airbags have also improved significantly since then. We now have better seatbelts, better brakes. You are just much less likely to die in a car in general now than in 1982. Also, the number of alcohol-related deaths off the highway have been increasing since 1998, according to the Annual Review of Public Health. The U.S. Department of Justice did a study and found that drinking in Europe was worse than the U.S. When I read this, I was like, shoot, I need to change my speech topic. But after reading this study more deeply, I found that it was purely numerical. It just stated that a greater percentage of young people in nearly all European countries reported drinking in the last 30 days. Of course, there are going to be more younger people reporting drinking because more younger people are allowed to drink in Europe, both by law and socially. It also doesn't take into account these social and cultural aspects of drinking in Europe. This is somewhat supported by the Social Issue Research Center. They stated that in a number of these studies, problem-oriented countries, it's focused on problem-oriented countries, and sometimes non-problem-oriented countries, such as Italy, are deliberately taken out of these studies. They don't even ask them about them because they know that it would screw up their results, and this leads to an unbalanced perspective. Another argument from Matt is that teens get drunk twice as fast as adults, have more trouble knowing when to stop, and so they naturally overdo it and binge drink. Part of this is true. Teenagers do have faster metabolisms than adults, so therefore we do get drunk faster. It takes less to get us drunk. However, I would argue, and experts like Barrett Seaman, the author of Binge, Campus Life in an Age of Disconnection and Excess, agree that they don't know when to stop because they're not supervised. Barrett Seaman argues that because the legal drinking age is so high, of 21, that underage drinking must go underground, and that puts us in dangerous territory, such as binge drinking, because there's no one around to monitor what's going on. And this is a problem that is pretty much exclusive to the United States. The Institute of Medicine found that more than 90% of all alcohol consumed by underage drinkers is consumed in binge drinking. So what's being done about this right now? Well, we have programs like DARE. I had DARE in my grade school. I'm sure a lot of you had DARE in your grade school. But what if I told you that it was completely ineffective and a giant waste of money? Studies have found that DARE show no reduction in drug use, and in some cases show increased drug use. A former DARE counselor stated that as these kids asked about drugs like LSD and heroin, I saw their interest and excitement increase. And it was in that moment that I realized this well-intended idea was a disaster. Our very own Dr. Horton of the psychology department states that at best, programs like DARE do absolutely nothing. And at worst, they increase the problem. And so how much money are we spending on doing absolutely nothing? Well, the Center of Education Research and Development found that in 2002, DARE cost taxpayers more than $1 billion. So, if what we're doing right now is not only ineffective, but possibly harmful and wasting money, what can be done? To get one possibility, I'm going to take us through a comparison between US and Europe and Canada. Not Canadian. So there's a striking difference between how the US and countries like Europe and Canada perceive alcohol. This can be summed up in one day, your 21st birthday. In the US, you hop from bar to bar, flashing your ID, drink, vomit, pass out, and laugh about it with your friends the next day. As my brother Andy told me, Caroline, if somebody doesn't carry you home, you did it wrong. This type of mindset is distinctly American. In other countries, alcohol is not veiled, kept in a completely separate part of the grocery store, totally cut off from an entire faction of the population, but it's actually shelved next to soda, and in that way, it's completely demystified. They're not. It lowers curiosity, which obviously in the U.S. is a big problem. So what else do Europe and Canada do differently? Well, Barrett Seaman, the author that I mentioned earlier, he visited McGill University, which is in Montreal, where the drinking age is 18. And they also have about 2,000 Americans enrolled about every year. And he wanted to see how the Americans in Montreal acted differently than the Americans in the United States. Well, he found that is the Americans, it wasn't a big deal. They could go down to the bars, they could go to clubs, they could have beer delivered to their dorm room. And it was a completely open culture. It wasn't confined specifically to the weekend, and found that this type of binge drinking was not as common at all. It was also the fact that students and faculty, as well as other adults, were all intermingling with alcohol. So instead of in America where youths are completely cut off from adults that are consuming, and so in this everybody kept each other responsible. There wasn't really a way to get completely and totally out of hand without affecting other people. Europe also focuses more on driving laws than they do drinking age. They have a much lower legal blood alcohol content, so it ranges from about 0.02% to 0.05 as opposed to the United States 0.08. And so not only is alcohol not hidden from youth, making it attractive, there are also better and more strict drinking and driving laws. I honestly think that if the U.S. adopted a European-Canadian model, our underage drinking would be in much better shape. So alcohol is a part of our culture. There is no way around it, and underage drinking is a serious and awful problem. The more we try to veil alcohol and tell kids to just say no, we don't help it. So what can you do? You're in college, it's not like you can change any laws right now or make other people lower the drinking age to 18, but you can educate yourself. Not only yourself, but your parents and your friends. After class, I'll email you the link to the website, Choose Responsibility, the one that I mentioned in my introduction. And there you can find articles about myths and realities of underage drinking, find reasoning for and against lowering the drinking age to 18, and even download documents to further educate yourself on the policy changes proposed by this group and what you can do to help. The ability to reduce underage drinking lies in our hands. What are you going to do with it?
Questions for Caroline? So there's definitely data that Europeans and Canadians don't binge.
Yes. No, I mean, definitely, I mean, you're going to, statistically, it's a lot lower than it is in the United States.
And the brain damage that some of the studies talk about, is that from the, that's not from the 1 or 2, that's from the binge?
Yeah, no, that's definitely from the binge. There was a study that I came across that talked about how Europeans are binge drinking more than Americans, like because they consume like 6 drinks within a day. But that's, again, not taking into account the cultural aspect of they're going to have a glass of wine with lunch. They're going to, like, friends of mine that went to Europe abroad, not only here, but in from back home, they have drinks with lunch, they have drinks with dinner, they have, and it's just, they also have, like, different sizes. So it's not necessarily taking into account, like, how much they're drinking, just how many of one.
So it's proportion to food and time.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, so a lot of them, you have to kind of really look to not get skewed numbers in both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually read that report you mentioned, the one about the United States, the report from the government. But I thought the study said that Europeans actually say, well, one, Europeans have the culture is more towards ours in the sense of like they're starting to binge more nowadays. And like I read some other stuff too saying like how like young people, they do binge a lot also, and the fact that well, my problem with I guess the age thing is if you get 18-year-olds to have it in high school, because a lot of people are turning 18 in high school, if they pass it on to their friends who are younger, 15, 16, even younger than that, and then the brain, like I said, the brain damage with that, if you start younger, and like it's kind of going to be harder for the school to like control that because you don't know who they're giving it to, kind of.
I came across that it keeps it out of high schools, and that's why it shouldn't be 18. But the thing is, like, does it really keep it out of high schools? It didn't keep it out of my high schools. People have older siblings that willingly buy alcohol for their younger siblings. It really, I don't think that there would be that big of a, yeah, no, there, it's not, it's kind of like, it's really not keeping it out of, I don't know of any high school that's alcohol, that's actually.
Are we the only major country that has the 21?
Yeah, we are, we have, I think there's one other country that had like a range of like 21 to 25, but we are the only country that has a distinct throughout the entire thing, it's 21.
Even this organization that's promoting, you're going to send us, do they see that this is really, we're making any progress moving that direction?
They do, gosh, I was reading something about their policy change, and they said how their efforts were somewhat ineffective legally, but that the more that we spread the information, the more that we get people educated, that eventually, like, that's kind of the first step in hopefully eventually getting policy change.
Do you think that we should lower our blood alcohol content restrictions for drivers?
I think that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to it, but I think that especially if we do someday get the drinking age down to 18, that we should also lower our blood alcohol percentage.
That varies per person. I mean, some people tolerate it a whole lot more. That's kind of a debatable standard. Any other? Okay,
9:48.